KXVI just dropped Drum Mastery, so of course I had to check it out. In today's video I'll be showing you everything that you get with Drum Mastery, so I'll preview some of the sounds. I'm also going to break down 2 of the beats already made with the pack, then going to talk about my experience with using the kit, what I think is good, what I think could use improvement, and ultimately, probably the most important, who I would actually recommend this kit for and whether or not you should buy it. All these chapters are marked with timestamps, so you can easily find them and skip around to the section that you're most interested in. But now, let's jump straight into it. The concept for Drum Mastery is actually pretty straightforward. You have 6 different packs, and inside each of these packs you have a bunch of sounds to make beats in one specific style. So we have trap, R&B, vintage, experimental, international, and pop. Now in each of these genre packs we have a drum kit, we have drum loops, we have perk loops, we have some melody loops, all in that one specific style, and I'm gonna walk you through all the subfolders in the next section. Now in total you get over 6,000 different sounds, which is a insane number for a drum kit. Now better make sure to have enough hard drive space ready as well, because they total up to around 18 GB of space, so when you download this, just make sure you have enough space available. Now there are so many different sounds on here, it's basically impossible for me to show you everything. So luckily all the packs are structured in the same way. So we're just going to go through the trap pack, I'm going to show you everything that's in there. And I'm also going to show you the other packs, play with a few of the sounds, but basically you get the same with all the different genres. Now let's go through these from top to bottom. So first up you have the drum kit, and in here you have literally everything you would expect from a typical drum kit, all the sounds you need. Some effects as well. Now as you can see, all these sounds are labeled with the subgenre of trap they're most likely to be used in. So for example we have ATL, we have Detroit, Memphis, New Wave, all these kind of trap subgenres. So basically when you're cooking up a beat in a certain style, you already know which sounds to go through, and it's a little bit easier to decide what sounds actually fit and what just don't. Now the next pack we have in here is the loop kit, and this has a bunch of different melody loops, all in the style of the genres, so these are just hard trap loops. Hard. All these loops are royalty free as well, so you don't have to credit KXVI or share your earnings with him unless you get a major placement that has like 1 million plus streams, and I think at that point you're probably worried about other stuff anyways. The next folder in the pack is the drum fills and transitions folder. So these are just some fills or rolls, and you typically add these at the end of like every 8th or 16th bar. Pretty self-explanatory, I think. Now after that we have the drum loops, so these are like full loops with kicks, 808s, everything. So these can give you a starting point for your drums. They can also act as something to test your melodies with, in case you're making a melody and you want to know how it sounds like with drums. And you also get all the stems, so you get all the individual audio files for the individual parts of your melody, which is pretty good in case you want to change up something, you want to remove a sound, you only want to get the hi-hat for instance. Here you go. Now in the next folder we have some drum midis, so these are 808 hi-hat and snare midis. And then also hi-hat MIDI. And also a snare. So this is just a snare roll, but we also want to add the typical snare pattern and maybe actually get a snare sound. So again, super easy, just drag and drop on top of your sounds and you're ready to go. I actually use hi-hat midis quite often recently, so it's great to have them in here. The last folder with sounds in it is the perk loops folder, so these are just some basic perk loops, and you'll typically use them in order to fill out the background texture in your beats. You can also chop these up and flip them however you want. And then the last folder that we have in here is probably actually my favorite, because this one has project templates. So for all the major DAWs, Ableton, FL Studio, Logic Pro, you're getting project templates for all of the subgenres in the trap genre. So we have an ATL template, a Memphis template, New Wave and Toronto template. So basically I can just load up these projects. Just like that, I can open up the template and I have all the sounds that I need to make a beat in that style already available to me. And the best thing is, these are actually premixed, so you can see that all the levels are set correctly. So if I add any of the sounds in here, I can easily make a beat that's already sounding pretty much done mixed instantly. Now I actually made a beat with the ADL template, so you're gonna see that when I break down the beats for this kit. Now all the other folders have pretty much the same structure, so I'm just gonna go through them really quick and play just a few sounds of each folder. So that's the RnB drum kit. Here's the melodies. Then we have the drum fills, drum loops, MIDI again, some perc loops, and of course the templates. Same goes for the experimental suite, so we have the drums. The melody loops, these are crazy.
Beautiful things take time. Just
We have some drum fills as well. Drum loops. Of course some drum MIDI, actually a bunch of different categories in this one. And then we also have some perc loops. Of course also the project templates that are already preloaded. And then we have the vintage mastery drum suite, so this is like vintage sounds, old school stuff, with a drum kit again. Some melody loops. Now in this one we also have some drum breaks, so we have full drum breaks. Just some live drums that are played in, and we also have only like the percussion and hi-hat stuff that is live recorded. Of course we also have the drum fills. Some full drum loops. Some drum MIDI again, and of course the project templates, also preloaded with all the sounds you need. Then we have the international kit. The international one is focused on like genres like dancehall or amapiano. So we also have a drum kit. Bunch of different percussion. And again, we also have the melody loops. Then we have drum fills again. Some drum loops. Of course, we have the drum MIDI, we have some perc loops. So we have live percussion, and we have like more textured kind of percussion. Of course, can't miss, we also have the project templates. Now, last but not least, we also have the pop mastery drum suite. So in here we have all the sounds to make pop beats. So we have the drum kit. We also have some melody loops. Actually, not that many of these in this pack. And then we have the drum fills and transitions. full drum loops. We have drum MIDIs, so all kinds of MIDI files. We have some perc loops. And of course, last but not least, we also have the project templates again. Now, on top of that, you also get the drum mastery beatmaking course that we're gonna check out in the next section. Now with Drum Mastery, you're not only getting access to all the sounds I just showed you, but also to the Drum Mastery beatmaking course. So this is basically a production course that is going to teach you in 4 different areas. The first section covers drum mixing, and this is basically a 1 hour long interview between KXVI and Orsix. And Orsix just talks about his techniques and his way of mixing drums, which is super clean. In the next chapter, KXVI walks you through his way of drum selection for each of the individual genres in the pack. The same concept is in the 3rd chapter, where KXVI then goes on to talk about drum placement and drum patterns that you can use. And last but not least, you're also getting a about 1 hour cookup video for each of the genres, where KXVI is just making a beat in that specific style. There is a ton of knowledge in this production course, and it adds a bunch of value to the overall production suite. And still, I think it's the weakest point of this whole kit. And that's because I don't really like the way it's structured. So basically, every video in here is around 20 to 30 minutes long and just talks about one genre. So you have one video for trap sound selection, for instance. Now this makes it, for me at least, really hard to take in the full video and then, apply all the techniques that are shown in there. I would much rather prefer having 5 to 6 smaller videos that are all split up between the subgenres, between different pain points, and just make it easier to take in the course without having to watch a full 30-minute video all at once. Okay, so as said, I already made 2 beats with this kit, so I'm just gonna play with the first one, and then I'm gonna break it down for you. So I made this beat in literally like 50 minutes just to show you the workflow that you can do with like these project templates. So basically the way I went about with this is I just went to the Trap Master drum suite, went to the melody loops, and I just got like this real one loop. Like, I just dragged it in, I adjusted the level a bit, and then I just started adding in drums. So this one is the ATL project template, and literally I didn't change anything. Like, this is all the stock sound that you get with it. So all the sounds in here are preloaded from the drum mastery kit, kick, 808, clap, snare, all that stuff. As you can see, there's even some processing and some leveling done already. So this beat, without doing anything literally, already sounds super hard and like it's mixed basically. Now this is what it sounds like without the melody. Now obviously I had to do all the drum patterns myself, so I haven't used any of the MIDI files that come with the kit. But besides that, it's super easy and straightforward to just make a beat in like 15 minutes if you use a sample and you just add some drums on top of it. Now, because I always encourage people to make their own beats, make their own music, don't rely on templates or AI or anything to make beats, I also had to cook one beat up completely from scratch. So for this one, I wanted to have a challenge, and I went to the experimental folder and grabbed one of the melodies from there. So this is what that sounds like. Super crazy synth, exactly what I like. And yeah, I'm just gonna play the final beat and I'm gonna break it down step by step for you to see what I actually did in here. So super hard, definitely something that's kind of unique. And basically the way I went about this is I got this melody, I then made a second track where all I did was take out all the low frequencies. So this is what the first track sounds like. You can definitely hear these sub frequencies, like the low bass that's in there, and then right here I just filtered that out. Just so it doesn't clash with the 808 and the kick and all the other sub elements. From there what I did is I grabbed one of the drum loops from the experimental drum section. So if you go in here, you have the drum loops. And I grabbed one of these loops. This is what it sounded like. So together with the melody. Just instantly set the vibe to something that's super hard hitting. And later on in the beat, I also just muted this track and I grabbed in all the stems from that drum loop, just so I could boost up these toms a little bit. So if you listen to this, like these toms hit even harder and even louder. And yeah, I just love the bounce of this. I didn't change up anything beside that. And right here I used a little production trick. So if you listen to this, you can hear how the tone changes the sound on like the fourth hit. And that's because this is actually a pretty long snare, so it has a pretty long tail at the end right here. It's one of the distorted live snare, again from the experimental drum kit. And I just cut it inside the MIDI roll, so it's a little bit shorter. And then just on this last hit, I extended the MIDI sound, so it actually sounds like plays back the complete length of that sample. And then for the second part of the drums, I actually wanted it to hit harder. So what I did is I just like lengthened all of the snare hits compared to this. So it just gives a more epic, more big feeling. And this is something you can always do with these like big, long snares. And I also added some reverb just so it doesn't cut off as like short and it doesn't sound that weird. And when I had this, I also added in a kick. So together they sound like this. Pretty straightforward. And I then also layered the snare with a clap sound. So this is just a clap. But it just adds that little bit of grit to the snare sound. Just, I like to layer sounds together. And then of course I had to add in the 808. And I actually experimented with quite a little bit of different sounds in here. But I knew that I wanted to have something that's super distorted as well. So I got one of the distorted 808s. As you can see, the pattern is pretty simple. Right here we have a chord change, so in the melody there's a chord change, so we also reflect that in the melody. Again, just embracing that uplifting feeling, that powering feeling. And then the last thing I really added was an open hat that had this like pretty simple pattern. And by accident I replaced that open hat with a kick sound, so this is layered on top of the main kick. But just because it added so much punch and so much aggression to the sound, I basically left it in. So altogether, this sounds like this. And then I had the intro and I knew I wanted to have like some sort of riser. So I grabbed one of the effect sounds from the Drum Mastery experimental kit again. Sounds like this. And then I also needed like something that has a little bit more of a shorter rise and a harder impact. So this one I don't think comes from the experimental sound kit, but from the normal trap sound. Just like a short riser that directly leads into the hook. Super hard. Now, after I had this first section, I also added in a secondary bass. So this is more like a sub bass. Again, pretty distorted, also follows the bass line, but this one, as you can see, is super simple. So it's just one note, pause, for the entire pattern, literally. But it works. Now, something I haven't even showed you yet is the way I switch up the beat, because again, if you repeat stuff like this for too long of a time, it gets boring, and we don't want that to happen. So I added two effects. First off, grid, which is basically a halftime effect that's automated a little bit. Then also this motion fractal plugin. And I automated both of these plugins to just start right here. So they just modify that already like quite weird and energetic melody into something even more weird and even more like glitchy sounding. And then together with the drums, this is what it sounds like. With these unique beats, you literally don't have anything to lose. You can just try out the most crazy shit that you want. And that's exactly what I did with the last part. So after this hook slash verse, basically, I wanted to just bring the beat to an end and have an outro. So I took the same sample that we had at the beginning of the beat. And then I knew I wanted to fade it out. So what I did is I added a filter to the master. And I also added a reverb to the master. And again, I automated these to only be active right here. So all of a sudden, filtered, reverby, and then come in the drums. So it just gives you that feeling of like, you know, walking out of a club and the song is like getting quieter and filled out in the background or something. I really like that effect, sounds crazy. Now all the sounds in this beat and in the other one as well are from Drum Masteries, so there's literally a ton of sounds in here, and these are just like 2 of the 6 genres that you get with it. So I could also make an R&B beat or an Afro beat or something that goes into the direction of pop. There's really a bunch of shit in here and everything sounds pretty good in my opinion. Alright, so let's talk about my experience with using this kit and what I think about it. So here are the positives and negatives if you want. First of all, this kit has a bunch of sounds, 6,000 plus. That's really a ton, and even better, most of the sounds are really good. Like with the past production suits of KXVI, you always had these sections where you felt like they were recycled sounds or sounds that were usable and good, but just not as original as they could be. And I think we really fixed that with this kit. Like all the drum sounds are top notch. Another thing I really like is the templates. It just feels like they thought of everything to make this kit as good as possible, and the templates are just a part of it, but they're good. Now one thing where I feel like KXVI just stepped down a little bit is with the production course, as I feel like this could have been such a great thing, as there is a bunch of knowledge in there, as I already talked about, but it's just not that easily consumable and not that available. At least that's what it feels like to me. Now the last point I want to talk about right here has something to do with specialized products, because in my reviews I always say I like specialized products. I like when something is really made for one specific niche and it's really good at that. And that's also something I've criticized with KXVI's last production suit, the Melody Mastery kit. Now this kit seems to be quite the opposite of focused, as it has 6 different genres in there. Why is it then that I still like it too much? And the answer to that is because it's still hyper-focused. It's just not focused around one genre, but it's really focused around drums and making them drums sound good. With this kit, it just feels like I'm prepared to do everything. Like, let's say for instance, I'm sitting in a studio session and all of a sudden somebody requests a pop beat. Like, what would I usually do? Download a free pop drum kit from the internet, maybe get a pop melody? Like, that takes a lot of time. And with this kit, I simply open up one of the templates, load in a melody loop, add some drum bounce, and I'm ready to go. Or maybe I'm just bored with all of the same trap drums that I've been using. No worries, I'll just go to the experimental folder and grab some interesting sounds from there. Like, of course, if you're just sitting in your crib and you're making hard trap beats all day, this product is probably not gonna serve you the best, and you're way better off with something like Elements of Trap. But for someone who is actively working with different types of artists in different genres, or who needs to be prepared to work in different genres, like, this kit is a killer. It has literally everything you need. Now the full kit is going to be around $170, and at that price it's pretty expensive. Now, by the time this video goes live, there are probably some of the launch sale copies left, so these are 150 discounted copies that just cost $100. That said, in case you missed the launch sale, I'll probably wait until Black Friday before grabbing a kit, just cause you're gonna get it substantially cheaper at Black Friday. Yes, this kit is great, and I'm going to use it for a long time probably. But would I actually recommend it to you? Well, that totally depends on who you are. First of all, I encourage you to be responsible with your purchases. Even $100 is a bunch of money to invest in something like a sound kit, so make sure you have that money spare to invest in your music. Also, don't do any of that buy now, pay later shit, even if that means that you're gonna miss the launch sale. Trust me, it's not worth the hassle. Now, if you have the money you need to buy this kit and you want to invest it in your music, just ask yourself 2 questions. First of all, do you have anything else that you could invest to? Like maybe some headphones, maybe an audio interface, maybe a better hard drive? Is there anything that you could buy that would substantially make your music better instead of just a premium drum kit? Think about it, and if the answer is yes, then probably just go for that. It's gonna be the better choice in the long run. Now, if you can't think of something to get instead, and you know that you want to invest that money into a sound kit, just ask yourself the second question. Is this really the best sound kit for you right now? KXVI has released full-blown production suits just like this one at the same price for the genres of trap, R&B, soul, and vintage sounds. And to be fair, if you're only making these genres, these are probably the better thing to go for. They not only have drums, but they also have phrases, live instruments, one-shots, and analog lap bank, all these kinds of things that this library is missing. So my point is, if you feel like any of these packs actually fit you better than Drum Mastery, just go for them instead. Just because Drum Mastery is new and fresh, it doesn't make it a better pack than the others, and these hold serious value as well. Now, this drum kit is super fire, but it's also super expensive. You know what's not expensive? Getting a free loop kit from my website. So I just recently launched RnB Sounds, which is my new project featuring good, high quality sounds and resources for producers. This channel is actually part of the whole project. And the first product that we put out is a free loop kit containing over 100 loops in different styles. So trap, drill, dark stuff, synth stuff, melodic stuff even. There's a bunch of stuff in there, and it's completely free to download. It's royalty free, so like with the loop kit and Drum Mastery, you won't have to share any royalties, you won't have to credit me unless you get a really major placement. So yeah, there's really nothing to lose. Just check it out, especially if you just got Drum Mastery and you want to get some fire melody loops. It's completely free, and let me know what you think about it. Now with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Bye.